Something I've never liked about theme parks are the food options. There's always lots of focus on an immersive dining experience, while the overpriced food usually resembles something you would find in a mall food court. Despite this, there have been multiple restaurant chains that have carried that magic of a dining experience out of theme parks and into your local shopping malls. In 1994, copying the likes of the Hard Rock Cafe and Planet Hollywood, Steve Schussler would open the very first Rainforest Cafe at the Mall of America. Rainforest Cafe was a smash hit for families who loved mediocre food and immersive theming, quickly expanding to 6 restaurants in only 3 years. But the themed restaurant craze wouldn't stop there. See, over in New York City, local mayor and cousin fucker, Rudy Giuliani, was on a campaign to clean up one of the city's grimiest areas.
This New Year's Eve, all eyes were on Times Square. Once the very center of a crime and filth-ridden city, it's now the symbol of a new New York, a cleaner and much safer place. The leader in making it so is the mayor, Rudolph Giuliani. He has done what many thought impossible: turn a big city around in look, spirit, and crime statistics.
But Rudy Giuliani didn't have to try too hard, because by 1996, the hit musical Rent would make its Broadway debut.
On the evening that the musical Rent opened on Broadway, the stars were offstage.
So with Broadway bringing in droves of new tourists, and investment firms bringing in loads of new money, Times Square would be headed towards a huge transformation. Only 2 years later, and Times Square was swarming with looking for work actors and looking for lease brokers. But a simple Rainforest Cafe just wasn't going to cut it. The city needed something family-friendly and truly out of this world to prove that New York had outgrown its unsavory reputation. Paramount Plaza was a prime real estate location on the northern end of Times Square. The 51-story skyscraper was home to the Gershwin Theater, as well as 2 sunken plazas that were notoriously hard to lease out. In 1997, the retail brokers for Paramount Plaza were in talks with Rainforest Cafe to open a flagship Times Square location. But the deal fell through when Rainforest Cafe decided that at 33,000 square feet, the location would be too expensive to open and maintain. The brokers for Paramount Plaza were still sure the space would be more than suitable for a themed restaurant, and they were right. Wealthy Irish meat mogul Pascal Phelan had teamed up with Simon Dythe, the son of a wealthy arcade salesman, to bring a whole new type of themed attraction to the sunken plaza in Times Square. After walking in through the plaza, you'll meet with the Mars Federation Customs and Immigration, where you're given travel visas. From there, you entered the Journey to Mars spaceship, a 30-seat simulation ride blasting off over New York City and through a lunar wormhole to Mars. Once off the ride and through a narrow hallway, you finally arrive at the 3-story Crystal Crater dining area. Near the dining area was the Star Bar, the Cyber Street Arcade, as well as a vibrant cast of local Martians.
I am the Empress of Mars. I'm Empress Gloriana. Of all the new human visitors, I go around in character. I welcome them to Mars and to the restaurant. I'm the Empress Gloriana. I'm an actress, that's why I work in a restaurant. I was working in a Macy's a few years ago at Christmas time. I was one of Santa's less known Jewish elves.
Hi there, I'm Dr. Mars, and this is Mars 2112. See you there. I'm Dr. Mars, by the way. Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening.
The walk-around characters in the dining area would routinely lead guests in group dances to classic Martian songs, as well as terrify kids that weren't quite old enough to understand what was happening around them. The food served at Mars 2112 was very similar to the kind of food you see at all themed restaurants. There were burgers, nachos, steak, and salmon. You know, Martian food. The bar served Mars-themed cocktails, such as Mars Teenies and Cosmopolitans. There was also a teleporter that would take you to the gift shop and ground level exit. So that was it. a $15 million space-themed restaurant. The year was 1999, and with the prospect of a new millennium on the horizon, droves of hungry tourists would take the trip to Mars. The restaurant was immediately popular for its spare-no-expense attitude when it came to theming and entertainment. Pascal Phelan, one of the founders of the restaurant, wanted guests not to feel like they were eating in a themed restaurant, but rather that they were actually experiencing the real event of traveling to Mars and eating a nice sit-down meal. This dedication to an immersive experience would set Mars 2112 apart from places like Rainforest Cafe and Planet Hollywood. And by the time the year 2000 would close out, they would become one of the top tourist destinations in Times Square. None of that would matter very long though, because New York's tourism industry was about to change forever. After 9/11, there was a large dip in tourism to all big cities, but especially to New York. Not even a month after the attack, New York Governor George Pataki would announce a $40 million tourism advertising campaign to encourage tourists to visit in the wake of the terrorist attack. This wouldn't help the struggling restaurant at all, and by 2002, Mars 2112 would file for bankruptcy for the first time. Trying to stay afloat, the restaurant would begin to open as a nightclub, hosting parties sponsored by local radio stations. These parties, however, would cause a huge problem with the owners of Paramount Plaza, and they would sue Mars 2112 for damaging their ability to maintain a Class A character for the building, citing certain hip-hop and rap special functions, specifically in court documents. From then on, Paramount Plaza's owners would have to approve of any and all events being held at the restaurant. This would mostly consist of bar mitzvahs and birthday parties, instead of the much more profitable nightclub parties, leading to even more tough times for the once successful restaurant. From 2005 and on, things would continue to deteriorate at Mars 2112. The costumes, which were worn by multiple people 7 days a week, were becoming ragged, and the food would become borderline inedible. Despite receiving a small boost in 2007 after Brad Pitt took his son Maddox for lunch there, Mars 2112 would file for bankruptcy again, this time due to pressure from Paramount Plaza to finish building a $1 million cooling system that they had promised to have completed years prior. Mars 2112 owed over $1 million in back rent to the Paramount Plaza group, and they couldn't just evict the restaurant due to how expensive it would be to remove all the intricate theming. So eventually, the owners of Paramount Plaza decided to let Mars 2112 reopen as a nightclub for space raves and, of course, the hip-hop parties that they had made such a big deal in court about. This influx of nighttime guests would continue to keep Mars 2112 afloat for the next 4 years, and would cement the windowless restaurant as a part of New York millennial history. Even though the nightlife was bringing in much more money, the restaurant would continue to fall into even more disrepair. By 2010, the Spaceship to Mars ride would break and be converted into a theater where guests could watch a 2-minute movie about Mars before entering the restaurant. However, most people just opted to enter through what used to be the gift shop's exit teleporter. In 2011, they would run into even more trouble. Mars 2112 made headlines for turning away Shaq from their nightclub because they said he was underdressed. Turning away Shaq was a fatal sin and put the final nail in the coffin for a restaurant that had been barely holding on for the last 5 years. 2 months after the Shaq incident, the owners of Mars 2112 would hire a liquidation specialist to auction off all of the arcade games and props. Despite many of the games being broken beyond repair, they would manage to get enough money to dismantle some of the larger structures inside. The dream of eating a meal on Mars was over, and in January of 2012, Mars 2112 would close its doors for good. The large plaza, now proven to be incredibly unprofitable, was quickly paved over and turned into an underground retail space, expected to be leased by a company like Apple. But Apple never came, and the property remains available for lease to this day. Today's space geeks will never experience the true magic of Mars 2112's atmosphere. Whether it was a silent nod from Captain Orion or a warm greeting from Empress Gloriana, those memories, along with Mars 2112, are fading away into a distant galaxy. In its short life, Mars 2112 experienced 2 bankruptcies, tons of celebrity guests, except for Shaq, and of course countless Mars teenies. But apparently tapping into the galactic market wasn't enough to keep them afloat. Perhaps we've witnessed the end of standalone themed restaurants. Disney has definitely cornered the market when it comes to space-themed dining, and I think that's okay. Maybe we don't need to have an immersive dining experience outside of theme parks, but who knows? There's only 90 years left until the year 2112. We could be eating on Mars again sooner than you think.